On this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network, our beloved A-League Women has returned for another season. Season 18 of the A-League Women started with a bang, quite literally, because the season was delayed by a further 75 minutes because of thunderstorms over Wanderers Football Park. And then, just for good measure, the same thing happened in Brisbane a day later. There was plenty of on-field action, there was plenty of off-field action, and so much more to discuss in what was a chaotic opening to the start of the A-League Women season. My name is Poletti. Burke, we're back for another season.
We are absolutely so deeply and unbelievably back. I am so happy to be here. And what a way to come back to the dub. Just an absolute peak dub of immediately having something stupid happen. And that is a 75-minute rain delay. And then immediately having the first goal being scored being one that was deemed slightly controversial. It's just, I love it here. I love it here. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we'll start. So for those who are new to the Dubcast, we usually try to start with our big storylines, rather than do the matches in sort of numerical order as they took place across the round. But I think I both know where we're going for our big storyline. And so what I think we'll do is we'll just go with the matches in the order they happened for round one. And then hopefully, we'll have a little bit more intrigue for round two. So our opening game at Wanderers Football Park saw Perth Glory 3 defeat the Western Sydney Wanderers 1. Gabby Holler got the opening goal of the A-League Women season, as Burke mentioned, in slightly controversial circumstances. They go into the break with a 1-0 lead. And then everything happened to start the second half. It was we score, you score, we score, and then it kind of settled down again. Perth Glory make it 2-0, Wanderers make it 2-1, and then Perth make it 3-1, all in the space of like 8 minutes or whatever it was. Like, it was just a crazy start to the second half. Roller Batawea scoring on her return to the A-League Women is what made it 2-0. Buchanan got one back moments later for the Wanderers. And then Gabby Holler got her brace. So, kind of a routine end to the game. After that, some substitutes confusion, saw Stephen Peters receive a yellow card, whether it was for, there were several things it could have been for in that time period, including slapping the advertising hoardings. I'll focus on the game itself here. Was it a foul on Bree Edwards in the lead up to the goal? Was it Buchanan that ran into her? Was it Batawea, I think it was, because Scholar was the player next to Batawea. Like, what do you think happened there?
I mean, I watched this live, and live as in on my computer. I do not for a second think I was in Western Sydney. Don't assume
if you were in Western Sydney
ever.
And didn't tell me.
If I was in Western Sydney for any reason, I wasn't. That I rewatched, I watched it when it happened, and I rewatched it, and I rewatched it, and I rewatched it. And all I could really get to by the end of it was that it did, unfortunately, look like Wanderer on Wanderer crime. So, no. But I can see why it would be thought of as yes, because just everything on earth was happening at that very moment, it seemed. But no, I don't think it was a foul. But luckily for me, I'm not a referee, so it's not my problem. I just get to sit here and talk about it after it's happened, which is the best time to talk about things, because they can't be changed now.
Yes, they can't be changed. Look, based on the angles we have available, and I'm going to talk more about that later. Based on the camera angles we have available, I think it was inconclusive, and I'd back the on-field referee's call. They have, admittedly, one less angle than what we did, but they were also less than like 5 meters from it or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I'm going to trust that the referees and the ARs made the right call at the time, at the game, and that it was a goal. But I think the fact that, we can't come up with a conclusive answer as to whether or not it was a foul, whether or not it was a mistake, because there were two camera angles available, kind of just reinforces the point that we need more cameras at games. We need more, sort of to make it better, right? So that maybe there was, instead of having the two cameras that are on the TV tower there at Wonderland, we have a different angle that's on the ground, or maybe at the 18-yard line, or at the edge of the 18-yard box, like you would see at men's games, which is used to help determine VAR calls for offside, right? Maybe if we got something like that, we'd have a more conclusive angle to help us make a decision.
Yeah. It's kind of like the never-ending story of, if you gave us just $3 more, this would be so much better. And then they don't. And then we have things like this happen. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Even just one more angle. Because, I mean, how many cameras do they have working for an average game at Amy Park for the men's? Stupid number.
I think it's like 7 or 8, unless it's a
Stupid
Channel
number.
10 game, in which case there's a couple more, I want to say.
I'm going to say even stupider number then. So they have stupid number cameras and we have two. Two.
Like, we've seen what sort of angles you can get on A-League women broadcasts when there's double headers with men's games. This is not me advocating for double headers in the
Oh
slightest,
no,
but like, yeah,
I would never accuse you of that.
like looking back to, and don't worry, I've got thoughts on a double header coming up this weekend. Looking back to last season's Alana Yanchevsky free kick, we got the behind the goal
That was
angle
so
of it
gorgeous.
sailing through. We don't usually get that for A-League women games. There are a couple of other camera angles because it was a doubleheader with a men's game. Those cameras were in use. So, like more camera angles equals, better content, not only for the A-League social media accounts, but for the broadcast. It makes the product better.
Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Having just one more angle could have changed that. Maybe not maybe it wouldn't have changed the actual on-field decision, but it probably could have changed the discourse surrounding the situation. So we could have been having a completely different conversation, but we're
We could
not.
have been,
So we aren't.
yeah. I will say, when you said like, just give us $3 more, like my mind immediately went to Patrick Starr. I have $3.
Yeah.
Like that's where my mind immediately
Which
went.
is crazy because the average fan of Australian women's football actually has a lot more than $3. And they, I believe, would actually love to give some of those to this. But again, that's not my problem. So that's someone else's job to realize that untapped market.
Yeah, it is what it is. Back on the game itself, I don't. I really hate doing like overreaction to round one sort of stuff, but
Yep.
like the Wanderers defense drastically needs to improve and fast, or else it's going to be a long season at Wonderland, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But at least they can't be 12th. They can only be 11th because we only have 11 teams now, so at least there's that. Yeah, it's tough when it's week one because literally everyone is just starting out, sort of thing, and obviously there are teams that are going to come out harder than others, or I guess more. No, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. They're going to come out differently this week than they are next week because they've had a chance to actually see what everyone's doing. Um, so yeah, it's, you want to say like, oh, it's over, but you could also say it's over for like at least three other teams. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. So we shall have to wait and see, I guess. Maybe like round four,
On
we can start saying like, yeah,
yeah.
it's over.
On the flip side for this, Perth Glory, they clearly came out with a plan. They clearly executed it incredibly well. Is it too much of an overreaction to say that this is looking like a team that will make finals after round one, or is it the fact that they came up against the Wanderers, last season's Wooden Spooners, who have finished, like, they've been in the competition for 13 seasons. They finished bottom two in 6 of them, 3 second to last, 3 last place Wooden Spoons. And if you extend that out to bottom 3, more than half of their seasons in the competition, they've been a bottom 3 side. Like, are Perth Glory good, or is it just it was the opening game against the Wanderers, a side who I had them last in my preseason ladder prediction? You had them, I think, bottom 2. I know it certainly wasn't the only. We certainly weren't the only ones who had them that far down the ladder. Like where do you think the Perth Glory sit after round one?
All I'm sorry, but you going through like where they've ended up every other season on the ladder, my only thought was, oh my God, we have to fold the Western Sydney Wanderers.
No, we can't lose another team. We cannot lose another team.
No,
I don't care how bad
you
they are. We cannot lose another team.
you're absolutely right, but that was just the first thing that came to mind. I was like, oh my God, these people they are so bad at football. We have got to get rid of them. It's like a mercy killing at this point, right? Uh, oh my God. Oh no. Um, like I've been following the league for like 10 years. I know that they are not good. I did not realize that they were that not good. Mostly, I guess, because you don't really pay attention when it's not, a team from your state that's that woeful. Yeah, we may be able to say whether or not it's over for Western Sydney Wanderers by next week.
Yeah, so
Oh dear.
2012-13, it was, they finished 6th of 8 teams. The next season it was 7th of 8, then it was 8 of 8, then 7 of 9, 8 of 9, 8 of 9,
Oh my
9 of
God,
9,
stop. He's
4
already
of 9,
dead.
made the semi-finals, 6 of 9, 9 of 10, 7 of 11, 7 of 12, 12 of 12. So that's a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, tune in next week to see if we've decided whether or not the wheels have they even put the wheels on for the wheels to come off?
I guess that depends on how you want to look at it, right? Because they've still got several of their international signings to come in. Janae DeFazio
Yeah.
didn't play this game after international duty with the Philippines. They've still got their 2 Chinese players to come in whose names escape me at the moment. So, like, they've got players to come into this squad that Jeff Abrahams wasn't willing to risk into Janae DeFazio, or I think still haven't arrived in the country. We've only just arrived in the country. So there's room for this team to improve, but also as a whole, there hasn't necessarily been a winning culture that's been able to be instilled in the club throughout its history. So I wonder whether those signings actually make a difference. And I guess the only way to find out is to see them play the games out, Burke.
Okay, so maybe the wheels are on, they just haven't been like screwed in yet. And we'll find out next week if they've attached them to the vehicle or if they're just kind of sitting there.
And I will say a stat that I found quite interesting from this game. It's the first away win for Perth Glory since December 2023.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, I
long
saw
time
that
between
one.
drinks.
Yeah, I'm surprised they did not die of dehydration. That's just a long time. Just a stupid long time. Yeah, I was very excited for them because, yeah, they haven't done any winning outside of Western Australia. So that was good for them. Yeah, I'd like to see them continue to win away from home because that was really their problem, wasn't it, last season? Outside of all the injuries, they couldn't win a game. Obviously, given the stat, we know they couldn't, but they just could not win a game out, outside of home. So
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out for the Glory, but I'm very high on them. I think I had them making my top six or sitting just outside the top six. So I had two different ladder predictions, and I changed it like 5 different times. So I don't remember which one I actually posted, but I had them sitting around the bottom of the top 6. We'll head to Leichhardt Oval now, the 8th wonder of the world for Sydney FC versus Melbourne City. It was a 2-2 draw at Leichhardt Oval. We have a lot to talk about in this game, but I want to focus on the game itself before we talk about everything else. Sydney take the lead through a Rebecca Stott own goal in the 20th minute. I'm not convinced it was a Rebecca Stott own goal, but that's what the scorers have
how many
labelled
cameras?
it down as. Shelby McMahon then equalised in first half stoppage time, which brought us an end to the first half prematurely as she was laying down injured in the goal mouth.
But if there's one thing she's going to do, it's save their lives at the last minute.
Mackenzie Hawkesby then won a penalty in the 61st minute and converted it in the 62nd minute before 18 Keane equalised with a nice 1-2 after linking up with Holly McNamara, who went down several times in this game, including what looked like a nasty concussion, but she passed the test, was allowed to see out the game. Spoke to Michael Matriciani about Holly Mack after the game, because obviously she'd just come back from Matilda's camp. Not saying, they're flying like basic economy on the way back to their countries, from international duty, but like, it's still a 24-hour flight. It's a very rough toll on the body. I know she didn't play a lot of minutes. Matriciani basically looked at it and went, look, she wanted to start, she wanted to play. They assessed it throughout the game and made sure that she was right to see out the 90, and she was, and maybe it wasn't her best game, and she said in the post-game interview on the TV broadcast that she was quite disappointed with her performance. Whether some of that is jet lag or not, that's anyone's guess, and far be it from us to speculate, but like that could be a potential reason. But the game itself, 2-2 draw. We saw Sydney FC take it to Melbourne City last year with a couple of draws before losing the third encounter that the two sides played. It was really the only team that Melbourne City struggled with last season. I look at this game, Melbourne City once again had, over 70% of the ball. They really struggled to do anything with it. Breaking down Sydney FC's defense was difficult. Is Sydney FC just a bogey team for Melbourne City? Do Sydney rise to the occasion? Because we saw Sydney FC look very average against a lot of teams last season. Like, can we really assess the game as a whole, or just put it down to round one, it's a draw, let's come back next week and see what they do?
Yeah, I think there's just something about it when these two teams play. I spoke to Melissa Barbieri for Impetus Football a couple of weeks ago, and she said, yeah, there's just something going on there. They always make it tough for City. And Matriciani said the same thing to me as well when I was at the pre-game presser with him. So yeah, I think there's just something weird going on there. Someone's hired an Etsy witch, I'm convinced. And they did it like way before it was cool to hire Etsy witches. And now we're still dealing with the fallout of that, it seems. Yeah, it was a weird game. It was very physical. Or I guess maybe I was just, again, stuck on the fact that somehow Holly McNamara manages to play every game of football she's ever in like an active war zone. Don't know how she manages to make that happen, but she does. I'm glad she survived, and as I am every time she does this. But yeah, it was really physical. And it wasn't like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It was just a really physical game, which yeah, I guess attributes to how much respect these two sides kind of have for each other because they really like it's round one. You should not be, maybe you shouldn't be going this hard, but they were. I really liked the 18 Keens goal. She definitely needed it after being the one to give up the penalty. I think I actually wrote a note on this one, on that goal, where it was the softest penalty call that I've ever seen. But it's a really good example of how experienced of a player Mackenzie Hawkesby is because she knew as soon as she got touched that if she went to ground, that's the call that she would get for it. Don't know how I feel about that, but it's clever. I won't deny that. It's clever, it worked, it got the necessary result for Sydney. So,
Look, on that, what I will say is it didn't look like it was enough contact there, but like you also make contact like that in the box, you run that risk. In the box, you run that risk, right?
exactly.
And I think,
and Hawkesby knows that.
as you said, it's a very wily veteran maneuver there from Mackenzie Hawkesby to win the penalty. And so I think I saw a couple of people were questioning it, thinking it, as you said, looked a little bit soft, but it's also like you make contact in the box. That's the risk you
Those
run.
are the rules.
Don't maybe get a little bit better at defending. I
doubt Keen is going to make that mistake ever again. So that is one way to learn. It's like when your parents tell you not to touch something hot as a child, and then you do, and you're like, that really
touch
hurt.
The hot thing and remember not to do it again.
Exactly.
And then you hear the parents, what do they tell you? Don't touch that.
Exactly. And yes, I fear she will never do that ever again.
I think we put it off for long enough.
Oh.
We have to talk about it. Willa Pearson makes her debut in this game, signed by Sydney FC this season after working with them last season as a development talent. At 14 years and 311 days, 312 days, I don't remember the exact number in front of me. She makes her A-League Women debut. Nat Tobin's injured. Look, I'm finding this really hard to talk about without swearing, and we're a no swearing podcast here.
We need to start editing in like duck quacking sounds.
If it was easy to do, I would. And like, it's not that it's not easy to do, but like,
it's tedious.
So for context, we usually record at like 7:30 on a Tuesday night, where there's a little bit more editing time for me to get this out on a Wednesday morning. It's almost 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time.
We simply
I do not want to go to that effort.
Sorry, guys.
It's so frustrating, right? She becomes, as I said, the youngest player in A-League Women history. Now, the last time this happened, we weren't on air. This podcast didn't exist at the last time it happened. So you had Talia Yunus, 14 years, 361 days, break Sam Kerr's record that stood for almost 15 years, and with good reason, at 15 years and 45 days old when she made her debut in the competition. Talia Yunus's record was then broken by her Western Sydney Wanderers teammate Isha Brooking a few weeks later, 14 years, 347 days, and then that was broken again. Willa Pearson, 14 years, 312 days. You need to get exemptions to play in this league if you're under 15 years old, and it's usually in cases of injury, right? It's not a case of, oh, well, she's talented, so let's stick her in. No, it's usually only an injury exemption. Otherwise, it's 15 years old. That's it. End of story. We've seen in Sydney FC have a couple of problems already this season. They had to sign Alyssa Rose because Shea Holman is injured. We know Indy Dos Santos is out for the season. Nat Tobin's injured, but I'm not sure on the status of Ruby Sullivan, but I believe she was available for selection for this game. She's a defender. There's no reason couldn't have put her in there. And this is before you even look at Willa Pearson herself, right? on talent alone, yes, absolutely. She deserves to be there. She had a fantastic game. If you didn't know she was 14 years old, you wouldn't have known by the way she played. But, like, she's a literal child. There's a reason the rule is in place that you can't play below 15 years. There's a reason that until recently, like, it took a lawsuit for the NWSL to allow players under the age of 18.
And they
A
should
league
not
that
have lost that. They should not have lost that lawsuit.
shouldn't have. A league that has so many of its own problems that I'm surprised when there isn't a year we don't hear about a coach abuse situation over there in the NWSL, right? Like it is a league that has so many of its own problems. I want to say it was Olivia Moultrie sued the NWSL, 15 years old, gets that rule overturned, and then Gotham decide to sign 13-year-old Mac Whittam for a contract that was not retroactive, was the opposite of retroactive, to come in on her 14th birthday, basically, and then she makes her debut at 14 years old in the NWSL. Look, as I said, Willa Pearson, clearly good enough to play in this league, and I've talked with plenty of people who think, if it's a situation of if you're old enough, you're good enough. But she's a literal child. I don't think 15-year-olds should be playing in this league either. But, like, that's the precedent that's been set. It is what it is, whether we like it or not. Keep to that. Don't... Like that. I legitimately think that's something that needs to be changed in the next CBA. I will give props to Teo Pelizzeri for this. But, like, Gemma Ferris, who just won the NPL Women's New South Wales title with Bulls FC, is a centre-back, got let go from the Western Sydney Wanderers. She can't get a contract in this league. Maya Lobo can't get a contract in this league. She's a young Matilda. Is that not some kind of failure that these players can't get contracts, but we're handing out debuts to 14-year-olds like they're candy? I don't know, but I'm struggling to make sense of this because I don't think there's any way to make sense of it in a way that can be logically thought out.
Yeah, that would be because it can't be logically thought out. That when I watched this game, I went to the W Club in Abbotsford, Richmond, whatever, same place, to watch it. I watched it with a mate, and we made another friend who came and sat with us and watched it. And the first close-up that they showed of Willa Pearson, because it was very hard to hear, one of us went, "Oh my God, she looks 14." And then 3 seconds later, Twitter had updated, and I went, "Oh my God, she is 14." So maybe she doesn't play like a 14-year-old, but she absolutely looks it. And that's not on her. Everyone looks 14 when they're 14. That's the point of being 14. Yeah, I'm sorry. At some point, there has to be somebody intervening for duty of care. Because one day, someone, like, we've been incredibly lucky to get this far without a child receiving a severe injury. Like, one of these days, one of these players is going to get tackled by a fully grown adult woman, because that's how this game works, and they are going to get injured, and it's going to completely derail their career in a way that is so deeply unnecessary. So unbelievably unnecessary. And it's not to say she's not a good player. She's a fantastic player. She kept Holly McNamara locked up. That was crazy. But I don't think she should have been doing that. I don't think she should have been doing that at all. That's a year 9 student. Just to, like, if you're like me and you don't actually understand what ages mean anymore, that's a year 9 student. The situation pissed me off when it happened the most recent time, which we did yell about on the Beyond 90 podcast. Good luck trying to find that. There's now 250 episodes of that show. Scroll back. I don't know if you want. I think what I'm saying here is what I've said then. There are, like, labor laws in existence for a reason. child labor is actually generally frowned upon. It's actually quite frowned upon. I don't think we should be doing this. I don't think we should have been doing it at the start, but obviously we existed, like the W League, as it was called then, um, was very different to what it is now. They played like 4 games and there were like 3 players in the league. So obviously one of them's going to be 15. Like that. Yeah. The last player that I remember playing at such a young age before all of this was Ellie Carpenter. And if you've seen Ellie Carpenter play, you know that she is something else. And she was also something else then, just like Willa Pearson is now. I I don't think Ellie Carpenter should have been doing that either at that age. I understand why they did it, and again, I understand why it's happening now because they're very good athletes, but I still don't think it's right. When I was Ellie Carpenter's the age she was when she debuted, because we're like, I think I'm a year older than her. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And now I'm like, oh my God, why did that happen? Why did that happen?
So, I'll run through the other names on this list of youngest ever debutantes. So as we already mentioned, Sam Kerr, 15 years, 45 days. That's number 4 on the list. Number 5 is Alyssa Rose, 15 years and 84 days for the Western Sydney Wanderers. Number 6 was Angelica Aristodoulou at 15 years and 85 days. Number 7, Nia Stamatolopoulos at 15 years and 96 days, and then Emily Van Egmond at 15 years, 106 days. So Ellie Carpenter wasn't even in the top 8.
Never mind.
Like these are, but like I understand your point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And
I don't know.
of all of these players, it's only Sam Kerr and Van Eggs that have had the long-standing career, isn't it?
Yeah, so like Alyssa Rose has mostly been in NPL, has gotten a call back up this season under an injury replacement contract. Angelica Aristodoulou was at Western Sydney, went to Sydney FC for a couple of years, and then has sort of been floating around the NPLs since. I'm going to be honest, I did not remember the name Nia Stamatolopoulos until I saw it on this list. Yeah, it's Kerr and Van Egmond. I hope that's not a telltale sign of where this is going for Willa Pearson, but like, or for Ishia Brooking or for Talia Yunus. But
I don't want it to be, but
no. Yeah.
Stop playing children. That's the moral of the story.
Yes.
Let the children be children. It's understandable that they are very, very good athletes, but they can still be very, very good athletes amongst their own age brackets where they're not, at risk of someone twice their age and twice their size with 3 times the amount of professional experience breaking their
Not
legs.
only that, but probably just 3 times the amount of body weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
it's just not a necessary risk that needs to be taken anymore. I understand why they were doing it, like I said before, why they were doing it at the start, because there were like 3 people who played football in this country. We don't need to do that now. I don't even think we really needed to do it back then, but we really don't need to do it now. There is a plethora of players in the NPL that are over the age of 18. Hell, you could even pick one that is 18. I don't care. That's a legal adult. That's a legal adult. Stop doing this. Leave the children. Let the kids be kids. Sorry to use that phrase, but it is true in this case. Leave them alone, man.
Well, okay, so the last thing I want to touch on before we move on from this, you mentioned it a little bit already. Kieran Yap brought this up on Twitter as well. Like, one of these days, we're going to have a literal child going into a 50-50 challenge.
That's exactly what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to come off on the wrong side of it.
And what
Willa Pearson doesn't turn 15 until Christmas Eve. So she's got 7, 8, 9 games to play. I don't remember when Sydney have their bye, but I think it's the first one they have is after Christmas. So there's a lot of games to be played between now and then. Clearly, Ante Juric thinks that she's good enough, depending on how long Nat Tobin is out injured. Like, there's every chance that exemption will still be in place if Nat Tobin is on the shelf for another, for another 10 weeks or whatever it is. Is it going to take a career derailing injury, a season ending injury, where she goes into a 50-50 challenge, or if, heaven forbid, someone else gets an exemption this season and there's a different player coming in who's under the age of 15, goes into a challenge, comes off on the worst side of it, breaks a bone in 3 different places. Touch wood, that doesn't happen. For us to reevaluate with the next CBA whether this should be allowed or not. But at that point, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. It's happened.
It doesn't need to.
Like, how bad is this going to get?
We don't need to do this. We literally don't need to do this. I think it also, again, I think I've said this, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast or on the other podcast I'm on, or I've definitely said it before. This is where we need academies. Like, we need youth academies for these incredible players to play in, where they can still get good experience and they don't have the risk of horrible injury. And I don't know what it says about your recruiting if you're next in line behind your literal captain in the back line is someone who's technically not even allowed to play. What does that say? You can draw your own conclusions. Critical thinking is important, everyone. Do that.
That's your homework for this week, everyone. I expect to see your answers in the YouTube comments.
At least 300 words, double spaced. Do not use Harvard referencing. I hate Harvard referencing. I won't read it. I will automatically give you a fail. Are we clear? Chicago or bust. Thank you.
And with that, we will head up to Queensland to have a look at our next game, which also saw several delays due to thunderstorms, although supercell thunderstorms.
Sure.
The only time I ever want to hear the name Supercell is when I'm logging in to play Clash of Clans. That's the only time I ever want to see the name Supercell. So the kickoff was delayed by 20 minutes because of lightning strikes. Play was then suspended at 6:10 p.m. local time due to lightning in the area. It resumed at 7:15 p.m. local time with a score at 3-2 late in the game. First of all, before we get to the on-field action, I'm going to reverse the order from which we did the last one. Should this game have actually taken place, or should it have been delayed? Because, and not to sort of give you the leading question here, but my opinion on this is that if you're having to fit a game around supercell storms, maybe reevaluate the need to play the game.
Maybe just a little. Just a little bit. And I had seen on the ABC's website, actually maybe it was that day, because I was at one of my jobs and was looking at the news where someone had died from being struck by lightning playing football. I can't recall if it was our football or Australian rules football. But yeah, I don't think we need to run the risk of being struck by lightning on the field, on a live stream. I just don't think we should do that. Yeah, I don't actually think this one should have happened. We could have delayed it a bit more, or we could have, we've cancelled games and rescheduled them before. It's not, I say it's not that hard, but there are challenges to rescheduling a game, especially when you've got a team like Melbourne Victory that's going to have to fly up and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think the safety of the players, the referees, the supporting staff, and the fans should really come first in these kinds of situations. Just delay it. And like a normal storm is like whatever. A supercell storm, you've got to be like you've got to be kidding me. Go inside. Go inside.
Yeah. The game itself, Bente
Banger.
Janssen making an immediate impact, opening the scoring. The Rihanna Policina revenge tour well and truly underway as she made it 1-1. And then Kennedy White made it 2-1 to the victory just before halftime. Sean Fryer then made it 2-2 in the 64th minute. Tamika Yallop in the 86th minute with the game winner. A goal that actually had significant consequence. And I will go to something I was told by Chris on Blue Sky for this one. He was at this game. We were specifically told at the ground that had Brisbane not been winning, it would have been declared a draw and the match finished. It seemed dangerous and unnecessary to continue the game. So, because the scores were level before Tamika Yallop, they had to play like 5 minutes. I think it was basically just a stoppage time.
Yeah.
The game would have been declared a 2-2 result, but because Brisbane had scored late, there was the chance for victory to get back in the last 5 minutes, and so therefore they basically needed to play the game out as the explanation that Chris on Blue Sky has wonderfully provided to us in our comment, our question call out that I do every single week on Blue Sky. Also do it on the Dubcast Twitter account. So if you've ever got questions for us, please send them in. Which also leads nicely into one of our questions from Lou, who's also sent this in via Blue Sky. Do you think it was right to play those last 5 minutes of the Raw versus Victory match in regards to player safety, that the outcome didn't change, that it was, an hour later before the play got back underway? Obviously, tight game, points are at a premium in this league at different points, and, Melbourne Victory probably would have felt aggrieved had the game been called. But, also, as I said, you're playing this game around Supercell Storms. Kickoff was already delayed. You're trying to complete a game before you get sent off again. I tuned into this game after I had made my way from Leichhardt Oval to Campbelltown Stadium, and I tuned in, I think it was the 83rd, 84th minute or whatever it was, and the first thing I see when I tune into the broadcast is I see lightning just flashing across the sky at, every 5 seconds, and I'm just like, how are the players not being dragged off the pitch here? It's visible on the broadcast, and I understand they've got different metrics as to what determines closeness to the ground, necessitating the players leaving the field, and that came to a head in the 90th minute just before stoppage time started. But the fact that you can see so many concurrent lightning strikes on a broadcast surely indicates that you're starting to push it. So I'll pose Lou's question to you: should the last 5 minutes of this game have been played?
No, I don't think any of this game really should have been played. Obviously, I'm glad that everything worked out well, but we don't control the weather, so if someone gets struck by lightning, I don't know who that really goes down to. Who's at fault there? Someone's at fault. But yeah, no, definitely should not have been played. Great game though. If you were a neutral, this was absolutely the game to watch. Also, maybe calling it very early, but I'm still willing to call it. Janssen might be the international signing of the season. Might be. I'm investing my stocks. I'm investing. Janssen international signing of the season. That game was crazy. That goal was ridiculous. Kennedy White's goal was also very good. I don't think I've ever seen Leah Varley get bullied off the ball before. So, that was new. That was new.
Yeah. Look, I think Brisbane are definitely going to be the real deal this season, and I don't necessarily take that as an overreaction to round one. I think they played well. I don't know how much of some parts of their game plan is going to be sustainable, but we'll see what happens over the course of a long season. Of course, buys this week give players a chance to rest and recover a little bit more than they would otherwise. On the Melbourne Victory side of things, they took the lead in this game, then coughed it up towards the end of the game, and their injury list, Grace Maher pulled out in the warm-up of this game. I don't believe she's playing this week. Taylor Ray is out for a few weeks with a foot injury. Chelsea Blissett is out with a back injury for a few weeks. Nikki Flannery, who spent part of the off-season in Cyprus on loan, is out with a hamstring injury. And then Sienna Silvesca is out until the new year with what is an undisclosed injury. It's a lot of their off-season recruits that have come in. Yeah. They took the lead in this game before coughing it up. We both had Melbourne Victory topping the regular season ladder, but neither of us had the club going on to do the double.
Yeah. I also did not imagine them losing first round.
Yes.
Please ask your question. Sorry.
No, you're all good. How much do the injuries play into that? Do we think this result changes if they have everyone there? Does it stay the same? Where do we see the Victory from here, knowing that they took it to a very competitive Brisbane, who did start last season with a bang, who were due to welcome back Momo Hayashi as well, before injuries basically forced the Brisbane Roar to fall off, fall down the ladder. Can we sort of just write this down to coming up against a tough side in round one, or do we think there might be more at play here with the Victory if, they're having to wait another month for Taylor Ray and Chelsea Blissett and Nikki Flannery and Grace Maher? And
I think it's a good thing they made so many signings, because they don't seem to have any players anymore. Who do these people think they are? Arsenal women in 2021? That was a bad year for injuries there. Yeah. I don't know. I guess, if anything, it kind of is a little scary, because if they can still play as well as they managed against Brisbane when they're missing that kind of firepower, when they do get them back, we may just see them take it to a whole new level, which wouldn't surprise me under Jeff Hopkins. But yeah, I don't know if this result would have gone differently if they had all of their players, because Brisbane looked good. Brisbane looked keen. And I'm very happy to say that after last year's whatever that was. We're moving on. This is brand new Brisbane, guys. They're back and they're better than ever before. Sean Fryer, excellent stuff. I was also really, really impressed by Grace Kualamu. I think she had a really, really exciting game, and I hope she continues to have that kind of pressure on teams going forward, because it's only going to result in good things. It is very good also. Sorry to just continue on my tirade about Brisbane. It is so good to see Tamiki Allop back. So good. And yes, she got to play all of 15 minutes, but she scored a goal. She won the game for her side. That's absolute peak Meeks. Really good. Yeah, because I was saying when we did the previews on Victory, it was where are they putting all of these players? I guess now they don't have to worry, do they?
They don't have to worry for a few weeks at least.
They don't have anywhere to.
By which point, maybe the player situation will sort itself out a little bit. Maybe it'll be a case of, well, sorry Taylor, we can't actually fit you in because
everyone's playing really well, and unfortunately, you've been injured.
It's their spot to lose at this point. Sorry,
you're going to have to out-train.
Which would seem very, very harsh on Taylor Ray.
Considering.
Yes. We'll move on now to Gossy Good Times, where the Central Coast Mariners ran roughshod over Adelaide United on the Central Coast. Peter Trimmis and Janaea dos Santos in the 39th and 41st minute sent them into the break with a 2-0 lead before an Izzy Gomez thunder strike. Well, speaking of thunder, all this weekend, there was an actual thunder strike on the pitch. It was Izzy Gomez's rocket
Oh
in the
dear.
79th minute to give the Mariners a 3-0 lead and the 3-0 victory. Burke, I wanna start by when we did our season preview, we ran over the list of inclusions that the Mariners had, and there were a lot of new names on the list as we talked about. You know, players who have come in from other clubs, players who have come in from the NPL, a lot of their departures. We questioned how well they might do in their total defense, whether they could even make finals. And I will say we did receive some feedback on that preview. We do acknowledge the feedback, but as I said at the time of recording, the club had not officially announced any of these players. We were running off of information that we had acquired from different people. So, you know, it was very hard to do that particular preview. And I even though I rate a lot of the players that had come in, the likes of a Liz Barwick-Gray, the likes of an Isabella Coco de Scipio, the likes of Janaea dos Santos, it was a case of whether they were going to gel. And once they got through sort of like the first 15 to 20 minutes, it clicked for the Mariners and they ran away with this game.
Yeah, and honestly, it didn't really look like it at the start that it was going to happen for them. I was very stressed. Um, but yeah, Adelaide kind of had everything going for them for the first 15, 20, 25 minutes. Like they had opportunity after opportunity, shot after shot. But Central Coast. I think the note the first line I wrote of the notes I took on this game was not expecting that from them given the massive turnover in off season, but hello, love, love. They've clearly done all of the work that they need to do to get the chemistry right, and they've managed to do it in a pretty short time as well, considering the preseason's only what, like 8 weeks, 6 8 weeks, something silly.
It's not long enough.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
So I'm very impressed, but I do think well, all games are like, literally every football game on earth is like this. If you don't take your chances, you don't win. And Central Coast took all of their chances. Adelaide took none of them, or they tried to, but they couldn't make anything of it. I think it's Langman in goal, isn't it, for Central Coast?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I think she had a brilliant game as well. But Adelaide, like, it's it's the same thing with Victor. You know, they're missing Fiona Wirtz and Chelsea Dorba, I believe, to injury. But how much can you put on them not being there? Because they have retained a huge amount of their squad and they have had really good additions made to their squad. So I don't know, maybe they just haven't found their chemistry yet, and Central Coast absolutely got the jump on that. So,
Well, on the Adelaide front, we discussed this in our season preview. It's a new coach,
yes.
potentially new systems, new tactics. They've got Mariska Walderson as an assistant coach as well. The new coach, Theo Siunius, has come in. Could this just be a case of, okay, what they've learnt in preseason, because they had some good results in preseason, they just weren't quite able to put into practice in a competitive game? Did they maybe come in slightly underdone and run out of gas? Like, I've just, basically, roundabout way of asking, could this potentially just be a result that we wipe away come round 5 and just go, oh, okay, that was clearly an uncharacteristic loss because Adelaide have gone on to get, 8 points out of the next 4 games? Or is there something deeper potentially at play here?
I think we're just going to have to wait. That's like the really fun part of doing previews and round one, is that nobody actually knows anything.
Yep.
So you guys are essentially to those of you listening and those of you watching, you are essentially doing so just to hear us talk. And we're doing this to hear ourselves talk because we really, like, we have like 1% of the data, and it'll be like 10, 12 weeks from now, and we'll be like, whoa, round one, we were saying some crazy things. And then towards the end of the season, we'll look back at like round 10 and be like, whoa, round 10, what were we talking about? That's the really fun thing about this is that you can't actually really say anything definitively at any point. Even something you think is certain, like, yeah, I think Melbourne City are going to make it to the grand final last season. Like you could say that was damn near certain to happen. Izzy Gomez, however, said otherwise. You just don't know. So
And
yeah,
that is the beauty
we can't
of
say.
the competition that we love so much. Before we get on to Canberra versus Newcastle, we'll go to one more question that was also sent in by Lou on Blue Sky. Will this league ever not be chaos? And as you just gave that wonderful rendition, Burke, the answer is no. This league will always be chaotic.
If this league stops being chaotic,
Yep.
that is the day I die. I'm sorry. I don't want to live in a world without a chaotic dub. What's the point? Sorry. Please
That is
continue.
fair.
Please continue.
No, we will head now to the nation's capital where Newcastle were 2-1 victors over Canberra United. They left it late to claim their first points of the 2025-26 season in round one. Michelle Heyman opening the scoring in the 14th minute before Charlotte Lancaster on debut for the Newcastle Jets. Levelled it in the 33rd minute with the assist from goalkeeper Anna Leott. And then Indy Breyer comes off the bench in the for the 89th minute goal to make it 2-1, a late winner for the Jets. The Jets go into the bye. Wellington come in off the bye. They face Canberra. I don't know too much of what to make from this game as a whole, from the Canberra side of things, from the Newcastle side of things. But if I'm Canberra, I've just conceded a late goal to the Jets. I've got to face a fresh Wellington who haven't played 90 minutes, who have had an extra week of pre-season to work with the new coach to embed down systems. I'd be very worried going across the ditch if I was Canberra.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be too. I think they are. I think also Michelle Heyman was very unlucky to not have scored a double because she hit the post horrifically in a way that you would have thought would actually bend the ball into the goal, but it went out because this is the league that we watch, guys. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I think there was quite a few. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't seen the full game here. I've seen bits and pieces. Um, but there were some interesting choices by the referee. There were some points, a couple of shots were taken at Tash Pryor where it couldn't have been handballs. There was some other stuff happening at the other end as well, where it's like the jet, like Canberra got let off. It felt very, very, how's it going at points. Um, but yeah, I think unfortunately, yes, Canberra do have to be a bit worried about Wellington, but we don't know if Wellington's gonna click as well as Central Coast have. They might. They might click even better. Or the puzzle pieces may be in completely different corners of the room. We will just have to
There's
wait
only one
and
way to
see.
find out. On the Newcastle side of things, before we wrap it up for today's episode of the Dubcast, it's round one. It's incredibly early to tell, which has been a theme of what we've talked about so far, but it looks like they've turned the corner from their horrific season last year.
And I, for one, am glad to see that. That that was a hard season to watch for the Jets, which was crazy because they pulled some excellent crowds. Like they had it going off. Was it number two sports ground? Is that the their home ground.
That is the ground they play most
Yeah,
of their games at, yes.
they like there was going off at number two homes ground, at number two sports ground. The goal, like the wins were not, but the vibes were on. So I hope they can continue getting some real positive like results, if only for the fans, because they have continued to show up and show out for them through whatever that was last season. Yeah, and I think this is a great result for the Jets. Again, based off of what we saw last season, and I do hope we get to see more.
Well, we only have to wait a few days to see more from most of these teams. It's another week for the Jets, but we don't have to wait for long. On Friday night at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time in Queensland, 4 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time in Perth, where this game will be taking place. Perth will host Brisbane. It is not a public holiday. It is part of a doubleheader. I don't know why we're playing games at 4 p.m. on a Friday in round two. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Throwing
Burke,
tomatoes.
who do you like in this one?
Well, I don't like the 4 p.m. kickoff, but that has been established. Who do you have?
I'm going to have a draw.
Well, that's boring. How much of a draw? Are we thinking 1-1, 2-2,
I'm thinking 2-2.
3-3? Come on. Do you
Oh,
know that
3-3 would be chaos, but no, I'm
there
thinking 2-2 draw.
was that one game? Was it Perth who scored like 11 goals on Adelaide? Or am I making that up? There was definitely an 11 goal result somewhere. This was many seasons ago, though.
Yes. We haven't had that result for quite a long time, but yes,
Someone should do that
there have been
again.
some crazy games.
Someone should do 11. I think, was it 11-0? It might have been. Someone should do that again. It was like 11. It was either like 11-0 or like 11-1 or something. And then the week after, there was like a 7 goal game. We should go back to that. We should go
I'm
back to
looking it up
that.
now. In the meantime, so you're going to think high scoring. Let's have a look at
Please.
Wellington hosting Canberra. Burke, your thoughts?
Oh, I really can't say because I have no idea what Wellington looks like. It'd be a lot easier to say if everyone had been able to play a game round one, but someone had to go to sleep. Not naming any names. Western United. Um, yeah, I don't know what Wellington look like. They'll obviously, luckily for them, have had extra time to prepare for Canberra. So I think maybe they'll get away with it. I don't know what the score would look like though. Maybe 2-1? Maybe? Michelle Heyman's pretty inevitable. You can like yeah.
You can put her in for a goal. Okay, so the biggest victories we have by 11 goals, it was Sydney FC 11, Perth Glory 0
There we
in
go.
round
Oh, it
7
did
of the
involve Perth.
2011-12 W League season. It was Perth Glory 10, Western Sydney Wanderers 1
That's the game I'm
in
thinking of.
round 4 of the
Perth Glory.
2014 season.
Perth
Adelaide
Glory.
United winning 10-2 over the Wanderers.
Yeah.
Newcastle Jets winning 8-0 over Adelaide United.
Let's
And
start
then
doing that again, guys.
and then
Defenses
Melbourne
go
victory
home.
with a 7-0 victory over the Newcastle Jets, rounding out the top 5 there. The
Everyone,
highest scoring aggregated games include most of the games on that list. Geez, I wonder why. As well as a 7-5 Perth Glory victory over Sydney FC.
why is Perth Glory always at the scene of the crime?
Perth Glory love chaos.
Interesting.
That's the only theory I've got.
That, and you know what? It will be proven true every single time.
It will be Melbourne City versus Central Coast Mariners, Burke, on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m.
Ooh. Oh, this one's a control-alt-delete fields. Um, I think City are gonna be good for it, mostly because I think a few of them will be not very happy about the last time they faced Central Coast Mariners at this exact field. So I'm going to call it 2-0 to City. But I'd love
I'm
to be
going to
wrong
say
because it'd be really funny.
I'm going to say 3-2 stoppage time winner. Don't ask me which team. Adelaide then host Sydney FC in Adelaide. I'm going to lead off here and say I think Adelaide find their mojo. I think the fact they'll be at home, I'm going to say 2-1 Adelaide.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Western Sydney Wanderers host Melbourne Victory at Wanderers Football Park to conclude round 2 of the A-League Women. I think Melbourne Victory, I'm going to say 3-1.
Western Sydney Wanderers, I am so scared. I'm so scared for you. I'm so scared. Yeah, honestly, I'd take 3-0 to victory. Western Sydney Wanderers do not end up on that list that we just discussed. Please. Not after we just brought it up. You can do it the week after.
All right, and that will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. We're back for another season of the A-League Women. Season 18 is well and truly underway. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful fun stuff. It helps us reach more people. It helps us spread the word of the A-League Women as well to people who may not necessarily be familiar with it, whether that's on your podcasting platform or on the Dubcast YouTube channel. We're happy for wherever you tune into us. Burke, it was a long one. Less games this year, but it was a long one. There's a lot to talk about to kick off the season. How many times will we go under an hour this year?
I don't know if I can even...
I think that answers the question. As I said, that will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. We thank you for your company wherever you're tuning in. On behalf of Burke, my name is Poletti. We'll be back next week at the same time in your podcast feeds and on YouTube. We look forward to your company then.